Okay, team, we are live.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome. It is Wednesday, February 16th, 2022, and this is the weekly meeting of the Lincoln County Board of Commissioners being conducted virtually. I'm Chair Claire Hall, Vice Chair Commissioner Katie Jacobson, and Commissioner Doug Hunt are also present, constituting a quorum. Our next order of business is the adoption of the consent calendar. Routine items or items we have discussed at previous meetings. Is there any item that commissioners or staff wish to either highlight or approve? If there is none, go ahead, Commissioner.
I was going to make a motion to adopt the consent calendar as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Hunt.
And I'll second it, but I will note that item G2 is another example of how the county supports affordable housing or low-income housing by waiving the property taxes on properties that meet certain criteria.
Yes, that's extension of the tax exemption for Festera Gardens and Yachts. So we have a motion and a second.
I'm sorry, I second it.
Okay, yeah, I remember you did. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, it's approved. We now move on to our decision and action item, an order repealing Order 6-17-190 and endorsing a new updated policy concerning homeless individuals and the procedure for removing homeless individuals from public property. And this was presented to us last week by Assistant County Counsel Jerry Herbage, Sheriff Curtis Landers. Essentially, it is removing a policy that we adopted in 2017 and putting in place a new one that reflects both changes in state law and more closely reflects actual practice by the Sheriff's Office. Is Counsel Herbage or Sheriff Landers online to offer any additional comment or information?
Yeah, for the record, this is Jerry Herbage, Assistant County Counsel, working under the direction of Kristen Ewell, County Counsel. And thank you for this opportunity. I think you captured things fairly well, Chair Hall. This matter did come up last week as an informational item with the idea that this would come back for the board to act upon this matter today. In a nutshell, this matter before you was precipitated by House Bill 3124, which came up in 2021 and was passed in 2021. And it actually provides for more rights for the homeless in camps on public property. And in regards to that, what we decided to do is to repeal Order 617-190, which is based on the old law, and adopt a new policy and a new order which endorses the Sheriff's Office's Lexipol policy. And the Lexipol policy is right up there on the agenda. It's policy number 429. It incorporates the new changes in the law, but also incorporates a policy of humane treatment of homeless individuals. And I think that you'll see that throughout the document there. 429 1.1 talks about the rights, dignity, and private property of the homeless and so on. At the last meeting, the Board of Commissioners did have some questions regarding coordination of homeless policies with the cities within Lincoln County. At the direction of the board, and since our last meeting, and this was on Monday, Assistant County Counsel Brian Gardner and Janet Harrison and I met with the sheriff and the sheriff's office over this matter. I have sent out inquiries to the 4 cities that do not have police departments, in part because of I think it was important for us to coordinate with those people, with those jurisdictions, and we're waiting to receive back correspondence following my email asking them about their policies. And that'll be a work in progress. This all relates to the concept that police powers within the jurisdiction of the unincorporated area, jurisdiction of the Board of Commissioners, and then the cities have their own policies, except understand that, for instance, in Waldport, the sheriff's office does provide police services there. And we want to work closely with the various cities in terms of their policies. So that's a work in progress. But we would ask the board in the meantime to go ahead and adopt this policy for the county. I think it's a good thing, a good move by the county. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions for Mr. Urbich? Commissioner
Not so
Jacobson?
much a question, but a comment. I thank you for reaching out and connecting with cities, especially the cities that we provide law enforcement services in, as they don't have their own. And yeah, I understand those conversations are a work in progress, but I would just want to see them adopt this as well, so that there's consistency. So, I understand that for them to take on the process to do that, they have to have a meeting and all of that kind of stuff. And maybe get some guidance from us, but that's my ultimate concern here, is just that where the sheriff's office is operating inside cities, that they have this exact same policy in place.
Commissioner Hunt, anything?
No, I think, it's a good policy, and I think, as I think I've said before, I think we should be the leaders and adopt this and set the example for others to follow.
Sheriff Landers, anything that you wish to add?
Thank you, Commissioner. For the record, Curtis Landers, Lincoln County Sheriff. And yeah, at our meeting with Councilor Urbridge, and he explained it very well. It's we have the contracts specifically with the city of Waldport for that enhanced service. But as I kind of mentioned, and we agreed on, that it's really all the cities that we provide law enforcement, we being the sheriff's office, outside the incorporated areas of Newport, Lincoln City, and Toledo, that have their own police forces. It's really critical that those cities adopt something, because it's required by law specifically, and hopefully they do endorse this policy, as I hope you do, because the contract's one thing, but we're providing law enforcement services inside Depot Bay, Yachats, just like we do in Waldport and Siletz. So I think it's critical that, and one thing to point out is that this policy is in, this is the one we're following, and we be in the sheriff's office for all those. But in order to really comply with the law, the cities need to endorse something on their own, and they should follow, what we're doing, so we're not contradicting what they're doing for the city and what we have in policy. Because our policy follows the law pretty strictly on especially on that private property and our public property and the cleanups.
Any questions for the sheriff? Okay. Thank you, Sheriff Landers. And now is the point where we'll open things up for Board of Commissioners deliberation and a potential vote. Commissioner Hunt, your light went green, so.
Well, I don't really have more to add. I think clearly we need to update our policy to be in compliance with the law, the changes in the law. I think this is a good policy. And I think we need to support the sheriff and the policy, which really does, I think, recognize some of the challenges of the homeless and provide better recognition of those challenges in a way that we can be supportive.
Now, are you ready to make a motion then?
Oh, sure. I'll move that we repeal order number 6-17-190 and endorse a new updated policy concerning homeless individuals and the procedure for removing homeless individuals from public property.
I will second the motion.
We've got a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. It is approved unanimously.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you again. Nothing scheduled under decision and action or discussion and information, I'm sorry. And we move to reports, and is Jane Romero online, our Health and Human Services Director?
Hello, yes, I'm here. Good morning, commissioners. Waiting for my camera to load.
Okay.
Uh,
And we
I,
could tell the public you're filling in this week for Florence Portal, Director of our Public
Yes.
Health Division.
yes, I am. And I cannot see that I am appearing on the screen, although on my end, my camera is on. I'm assuming you cannot see me.
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just black. That's weird. I mean, usually when somebody's camera is off, you still see their name, but it's just a blank screen of it completely.
Yes, Chair Jane, it doesn't seem to be anything on my end here. Might just be a technical glitch on your end.
It
Jane.
may be. I've been in 2 video conferences this morning and the camera worked perfectly both times. So if you're okay with it, I'll just go forward with the audio and get through the slide deck. And you'll just have to
Okay.
know that I am smiling as I talk.
Okay. Because you
Very
got some good news for us, right?
I do have some good news. So let's start the slideshow, Casey. So in Lincoln County, our case count is continuing to trend down. That is welcome news for all of us. If you look at our last full week, which was the week of February 6th, as compared to the week prior, we are seeing a 41% decrease in cases. And we have a slide on this a little later on. The other big highlight this week is that the CDC has shortened the wait time between when folks who are immunocompromised can get their 4th dose. Okay, so those folks have been able to get a 3rd dose. And I think the CDC had recommended that they wait 6 and then 5 months before they got their 4th dose. That has been changed, and the new recommendation is that they can get the 4th dose at 3 months following the 3rd dose. And of course, if anybody listening feels that they qualify to get that 4th dose, then we're advising that they follow up with their healthcare provider. So next slide, please. So here's our epi curve for Oregon, and it is definitely going in the right direction. It is trending down. And if we want to move to the next slide, we can see that we are also seeing a decline. So through February 14th, our case count was 675, still well above what we were seeing September through December of last year, but well below what we saw in January. So this is a good sign for us. Our positive test rate is still at about 16%. My understanding is we like to see that at 5% or less. Anything above 5% suggests that the rate of infection is maybe a little higher than what we're seeing. But again, our trend is definitely going in the right direction. So next slide, please. And here you can see for the week of February 6th, we had 274 reported positive cases as compared to 462 the week prior. And so that shows our 41% decline. Next slide. So this slide really reflects the positive case rate throughout the entire pandemic. So the blue bars represent the numbers of positive cases in the calendar year 2020. The red bars represent the positive cases in 2021, and the yellow bars represent 2022. And if you go over to the far left-hand side of the chart, you can see that in January, we had 2,050 positive cases as compared to 177 in 2021. And here we are in February, we have 675 positive cases through February 14th as compared to 66 positive cases in 2021. So next slide, please. This is our hospitalization rates for the state of Oregon. Again, we're seeing the curve go in the right direction, which is down. The numbers of folks in the hospital with COVID is trending down. That's the dark blue line at the top of the chart. The middle line, the medium blue line, is also trending down. That's the number of folks in ICUs. And then the light blue line at the bottom reflects the number of folks in ICUs and on a respirator. Again, everything trending down. Next slide. At the local level, with our North Lincoln Hospital, we can see that that hospital has 4 ICU beds. As of February 14th, looks like 3 individuals were in the hospital who were testing positive for COVID, and 1 was in the ICU. And the next slide, for Pacific Communities Hospital in Newport, kind of the same story. That hospital has 6 ICU beds. There are 5 individuals in the hospital in general who are testing positive with COVID, and just 1 in the ICU with COVID. So next slide, please. Overall, we have a vaccination rate of 85%. This would include individuals 5 and older who have had at least 1 dose of the vaccine. Still a pretty good rate for us. And at present, about 42-43%, depending on how you want to round that, 0.5% of our population is boosted. And of course, when you look at the age range, the older population is vaccinated and boosted at a greater rate than the younger ranges. But of course, the 5 to 11-year-old population just actually began to start being able to be boosted fairly recently. So next slide, please. So this slide reflects the numbers of vaccinations we're giving over a period of time. And so I'm just going to take you to the far right-hand set of bars. So the red bar represents the total vaccines administered. And between February 9th and February 15th, it appears that about 475 doses of the vaccine were administered, and a little over half, or 250, 260, were actually booster doses. And if you look at the yellow line going across the top, that line reflects the percent of vaccines given that were booster doses. So that's right at about 58% of the vaccines that we're giving. And then, of course, the reverse is true, that about 42% of the population are still getting their initial series of vaccinations, the first 1 and 2 doses. Next slide, please. These are our upcoming vaccination clinics. And of course, anybody who's interested can go to the county website and get more information about when these clinics are occurring and where. And then I think the final slide, Casey. Oh, no, one more slide. So I think we've probably all heard in the news that the mask requirements are scheduled to change. We have heard that the Oregon Health Authority will lift the indoor mask requirement no later than March 31st. The school mask requirements will be lifted on March 31st as well. OHA does not plan to lift the requirements for masking up in healthcare facilities. So that, of course, will include our own clinics. The recommendation really is that people who are at high risk of severe disease or who fall within this category I'm going to go over in a minute continue to wear masks when they're in indoor public settings. And so those folks would, of course, include anybody who's unvaccinated, those who have compromised immune systems, anybody who has an underlying health condition, folks who are 65 and older, and anyone living with folks who are at high risk for contracting the disease. and then the final slide. So we always like to end with this slide to protect yourself, protect your coworkers, your family and others. It's recommended that you get vaccinated, get a booster when you're eligible, wear your mask in public settings, and limit social gatherings. If you are in a social gathering, maintain physical distance, stay home when you're sick, and get tested if you can. And that wraps up our slides for this week. Any questions?
Commissioners, any questions for Jane? None from Commissioner Hunt, and it looks like none from Commissioner Jacobson either. Well, thanks. The good news, the update is always very helpful to us, and I get a lot of positive public feedback about it. And it's nice to have some really good news. So
It is nice, yes. Well, thank you all.
thank you, Jane. Okay, now we move on to commissioner reports. Commissioner Jacobson.
Yeah, I have several just little tidbits here. One is we should find out on the 18th, so just a couple of days from now, if the state is going to commit on building 1 or 2 tiny home villages in the north part of the county for wildfire survivors. So this is to get them out of hotels or get them out of kind of substandard living conditions and into something more permanent. So again, we'll find out on the 18th. There's 2 proposed sites at this point. So we'll find out if they're doing both or none or one of them. And then there's also some work being done on a potential 3rd site, but that's not being considered yet at this point because there's not enough information. So fingers crossed on that for the 18th. Also, on a childcare front, there was a bill passed in the last session that then required in-home childcare providers. So this is people typically taking care of their own children and then extra children as well, to have in-home sprinkler systems, which is a huge barrier. Obviously, there's not a lot of homes that have existing sprinkler systems in their home. Mine certainly doesn't. So it became a large barrier for both existing childcare providers and new childcare providers wanting to get into the business. So in working with Rep. Gomberg and Senator Anderson and several others, this is an issue across the state, not just in Lincoln County. It looks like that is going to be repealed, or what I really should say is it looks like they're going to put in alternatives in place, obviously making sure children are safe, but making sure people have alternatives. So if you have an alternative exit or extra fire extinguishers or things like that, the space can still be safe without a very expensive sprinkler system. So looking forward to that being corrected. Once that is changed, classes for providers will kind of restart at the community college. We had started that process and then nobody could move forward because of this new rule. So fixing the rule, restarting those classes, and working on trying to get some funding for a professional ad campaign to kind of encourage people to become in-home providers, as well as some funding for some shared services, which would help in-home providers deal with things like billing and things like that, kind of in a shared way. Other updates is working with Business Oregon right now on a potential funding source to help Elk City do a water engineering study to look at options for better water development. I think we've probably all heard from Elk City in the past about their need for water and everyone being on a well or spring fed system. And unfortunately, with the drought conditions we've had in the last couple of years, that's just not going to be, a long-term thing for them. So we're hoping to get this, money so they can get some professionals out there and look at what might be possible for them. And then finally, just a little community plug that Coastal Act Productions has their Tarzan show, which is opening on the 25th in Newport at the Performing Arts Center, and health and safety measures are in place at the PAC. But I think it's no surprise to anyone that we have very talented staff here in the BOC office. And I will just say that we have some very, very talented staff beyond just working in the BOC that I'm excited to see perform, as well as one particular little gorilla That's part of my clan that will be performing as well. So just a plug out to Tarzan, and it's nice to be able to see kids and community get together and perform again. That's all from me. Thanks.
Commissioner Hunt, do you have anything this week?
I've got a few things. First of all, I believe Commissioner Jacobson, you were unable to review the letter, but Commissioner Hall and I sent a letter to DEQ, to the legislature, in support of refining or changing the electronics recycling process in Lincoln County. There was a process to eliminate sites within the county, and we spoke up and provided our support for, in effect, going back to the old process, which had collection sites at several points throughout the county. We were part of a group, and we were selected, the county was selected as one of the organizations to potentially testify in favor of the changes that would be made in order to, again, make the recycling of electronic items within the county much more readily accessible. So that's good news. Second of all, I received in the mail my home test kits. So a lot of people complain about the bureaucracy, but I think it was within the month that the opportunity came to, in effect, sign up for free at-home test kits, and I have received mine. And finally, I'll give a shout out to the Samaritan Urgent Care Center. Without getting into specifics, I'm a typical male, but I was doing some work in the garage and trying to cut some tape with a sharp knife. Ended up stabbing my hand. And the short story is Urgent Care was very receptive, very attentive, as it was generating a good amount of blood. Anyhow, 3 stitches later and a bruised ego, I'm fine. But shout out to the urgent care staff there that were outstanding in the care that they provided, and to my wife who drove me there. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. I've got a couple of items. Earlier this week, there was a vote on the floor of the Oregon State Senate, and I was reappointed to a second 4-year term on the Oregon Housing Stability Council beginning in June, and I continue as chair of the council. Also, the homeless pilot project covering Lincoln County and 7 other counties, which would provide a 2-year, $2 million grant to establish coordination of homeless services. That was voted out with a unanimous positive recommendation out of the House Housing Committee, and now is moving on to Ways and Means. So never want to count your chickens until they've hatched, and it won't be official until it reaches the governor's desk and she signs it. But the signals on that happening continue to be positive. We have no written public comments submitted through Smartsheet this week. PIO Miller, is there anybody for live testimony?
No, we do not have anybody signed up. And you are right, we have not received any Smartsheet submissions since the 7th of February. So yeah, I think that's where we're at with input today.
All right, the last thing I need to do is remind everybody that the office is closed. County offices are closed next Monday, the 21st, a legal holiday, President's Day. So our virtual staff meeting will take place at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, the 22nd, and the virtual public meeting of the Board of Commissioners, 10 a.m. on Wednesday, the 23rd. Until then, thank you, and we'll see you next week.